Tally-ho, welcome to the Pitt Rivers Museum. We are four of a band of immortal space pirates known as the Mechanisms. And as the result of a lost bet and some broken and eaten objects, we're going to be taking you on a tour of our favourite objects in this simply spiffing museum. Now, I'm the toy soldier, and I'm going to start with a little bit of an introduction to the history of the museum in this planet's boring monodirectional time stream. Was founded by a military chappie, like myself, name of Lieutenant General Augustus Henry Lane Fox Pitt Rivers. Tell you what, let's call him General Pitt Rivers for short. Now, General Pitt Rivers fought in the Crimean War, for which he was asked to help develop the prototype Enfield rifle, the descendant of which was most famously used in World War I. Now, to develop this rifle, he collected guns from all over the world and through all different eras of time, and he studied the way in which their complexity seemed to advance and progress through time. And he became fascinated by this. His fascination soon spread to all objects created by human beings, to the extent that in 1884 he had amassed a collection of 20,000 objects which would no longer fit inside his home. He then donated them to the University of Oxford under 3 conditions. His first condition was that his name would be emblazoned above the door of this building, which they had built especially to house the collection. His second condition was that it would be a public collection that anyone could come and see, and that they would employ a professor to teach about the collection. And this fellow would be the first professor of anthropology, which before that point wasn't a generally studied academic subject. And his final condition was that all the objects would be arranged and displayed typologically, a word which General Pitt Rivers himself invented, meaning that all the objects would be grouped together according to form or function. For example, in this cabinet, all the guns from all different corners of the globe and all different eras of time are arranged together in the same cabinet. And I think that's an absolutely splendid way of juxtaposing the myriad different ways that human beings have come up with to solve the same problems of daily living.
I am John Brian, ship's pilot, and I'm here to talk to you about this rather shy Japanese fellow. Now, he's wearing some Japanese samurai armor, which was introduced in 1750, the Edo period, which was a peaceful time in Japan, so it was probably a ceremonial suit of armor for a samurai lord. The samurai were much like your British aristocracy in that they involved the whole family and not just the warriors. Now, you'll see his breastplate, which isn't actually made of metal, but a sheet of leather with about 40 layers of lacquer made from tree sap on it, making it almost as durable as steel, but much more wearable and versatile. I've never had any problems myself. The faceplate was introduced in the 16th century after the introduction of European firearms. Now, as you can see, it's been emblazoned with a ferocious moustache, and others had glaring eyes or snarling mouths to try and intimidate the enemy. Now, of course, having their faces covered means that they were at risk of being killed by members of their own side. I know that feeling. So, to combat this, they carried flags for identification.
I'm Raffaella Lacognizzi, the science officer of the Mechanisms, and I'm going to be telling you about the geomantic compass. Compasses were invented in 200 BC in China, but they weren't actually used for navigation until the 15th century. Before that, they were used for fortune-telling. So this golden compass was made in the 19th century in China, and it was used to find a suitable environment, a suitable feng shui environment, in order to build a home. So it would be laid down in the prospective spot, and this fine magnetic needle, I like magnets. Anyway, yes, it would swing around under the influence of the local magnetic fields. And these concentric rings of symbols would allow the fortune teller to read multiple layers of meaning into the motion of the needle. This would allow the fortune teller to determine whether this would be a fortuitous place to build a home.
This is a mandolin from the First World War. It was owned by a local Oxford music teacher called Arthur Kennedy, who signed up in 1914, and he fought very widely across the whole of Europe. He fought at Ypres, the Somme, all the major, most violent battles, and when he got home he had the names of all the battles that he'd fought at inscribed down the side of his mandolin. Now, he donated this mandolin to the Pitt Rivers Museum in 1945, and I think it's absolutely remarkable that the mandolin, and indeed the man himself, survived such a war. It truly is the modern-day Captain Corelli's mandolin. And as you can see from the front of the instrument, it's very scratched, which indicates that it's been very well used. And I can just imagine him playing the mandolin to raise morale in the troops. And concealed inside the mandolin is actually a newspaper cutting from a local Oxford newspaper celebrating Arthur A. Kennedy, minstrel to the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry. Now, this object is of particular interest to me because when I'm not being forced at gunpoint to give guided tours, I myself play the mandolin, and I really am inspired by the way in which music can bring hope even in the most dire circumstances. In fact, I raised morale of the troops during the campaign against the Moon Kaiser in... oh no, wait, it's 2013, isn't it? Oh, gosh. Gosh, you're in for a treat, and they're 2,000 years in the future ago. Goodness me.
Hello, I am Gunpowder Tim, and I did not agree to this. So, in 1851, the then Colonel Pitt Rivers was invited by the army to develop a new service gun. The British Army, up to that point, had been using the same musket for 130 years, the Brown Bess. The same one they'd used in the American War for Independence. Now, the Brown Bess used a traditional flintlock mechanism whereby a hammer hits, containing a small piece of flint, hits a small piece of steel, igniting a spark, which sets alight some powder and fires a weapon. This has a few issues. Number 1, the powder, if wet, may refuse to fire. Number 2, the powder, if dry, may fire spontaneously if an ember is left in the pan. And number 3, it is quite inaccurate, as well as the fact that it fired traditional projectiles rather than a superheated plasma, but to each their own. Now, long story short, Pitt Rivers combined 3 things in his new gun design. Number 1, a new firing mechanism. Small cartridges containing percussive activated powder that would allow the rifle to fire safely and reliably. Number 2, a rifled barrel. Spiral curves within the barrel that would allow it to fire with greater accuracy and velocity as the bullet was encouraged to spin through the air. And number 3, conical bullets, which were more effective than the usual round bullet, though less effective than ball plasma. So, previously, rifles had only been used by specialist snipers and off-kilter gun enthusiasts, as they took longer to load than the more well-used muskets. However, after the new modifications, the rifle was instrumental in allowing Britain to win the Crimean War, and in the process revolutionising modern warfare, allowing for new strategies such as sniping and firing at will.